shape of my life. Feeling good. Yeah, looking good. We just spawned. Yeah, indoor, outdoor, coming out southpaw. Part 3, still don't give about y'all. Guns on my waist, money in the safe, and I'm in good shape, so I should win it by the 8th. The ballers in the front, double-breasted down, pound for pound. They know I'm the best around. Hard to hit.
All right, listening to In the Corner Boxing Radio. I'm your co-host, the Cutman, Charlie Elwood, joined by the Chief Second, Lee Harris. Lee, what's going on, man? I mean, look, there was really no fights to talk about last week. I mean, we still did a show. I thought a pretty good show, if I may say so. But obviously, there's really no fights to talk about this week. Outside of that, I mean, you talk about sports and news, and everybody's going crazy about this dude, Lin, the basketball player. I don't know your opinion about that. I know he's not Korean, but he's still Asian American. So maybe you have some kind of connection there. So what do you think of Lin overall? And otherwise, how was your week, man?
I mean, I can barely sleep at night because I'm caught up in the Lin-sanity, baby. I mean, Jeremy Lin and the Knicks, this guy is ridiculous. Most points since the merger, NBA, ABA merger, in his first 5 starts ever. I mean, it's better than Jordan, better than all those guys that had that record. Just blowing up. Jeremy Lin is insane. Then last night up in Toronto, gets this crucial bucket at the end where he penetrates the lane, gets fouled, makes the bucket, hits the free throw, and then as they're coming up the court, game tied, clock's winding down, they just do an ISO. He just walks up to the three-point line, doesn't even look to pass, and just buries the tray. Game winner with .05 seconds left. That dude's insane, and it's just nuts. And so people listening might say, well, what are they talking about, NBA basketball? Well, of course, you can't have an Asian do anything good without, ignorant Floyd Mayweather popping off at the mouth. So, of course, he's tweeting that, hey, the guy's okay, but the only reason people are talking about this guy is because he's Asian. And black players do this every day, and they don't ever get any credit, which is just idiotic on so many levels. First of all, what LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Kobe Bryant, these guys don't get credit. What world does Floyd live in? Those guys are superstars in this country. They get tons of credit and make mega bucks. In fact, everybody in the NBA makes tons of money. So Mayweather's an idiot. And then second of all, it's because he's Asian. I mean, nobody in the league ever has done what he's done in 5 games. And then he's got, actually now it's 6 games. I mean, he's 6-0 since he started, and this was for a team that sucked. So he's winning games, he's breaking records, he's dealing the ball like crazy. He's a point guard, tons of assists and everything. So of course, but then Mayweather thinking that he's the spokesperson for Black America, but he's not. He's just getting ripped by black people everywhere, like Spike Lee, Chris Rock, Mike Wilbon, all kinds of big name black celebrities out there being like, yo, Mayweather, just shut up, dude. This guy, Lin, is a beast. You don't know what you're talking about. Even Austin Trout, WBA junior middleweight champ, he was like, look, for a record, I don't agree with what Mayweather said. This guy, Lin, is a monster. Loving this guy. Ishe Smith, I know, was on Twitter giving shout outs to Lin and everything else. Funny thing was, though, Charlie, so the coach, Mike D'Antoni, the coach of the Knicks, used to be a Phoenix Suns coach, but he heard about Mayweather's comments, so he tweets after, I guess it was after the 5th game, I think. It might have been after the most recent game, but D'Antoni says, so Floyd Mayweather thinks that Jeremy is overrated, which is funny because Jeremy's managed to stay undefeated without ducking anyone. So even D'Antoni hip to the Mayweather ducking Pacquiao stuff. So it's just hilarious. Like, it's the more Mayweather talks, the more you realize what an idiot he is, and the more he just sort of projects himself as a racist. I don't particularly think his comment this time was ultra racist, but when you tack it on to the, hey, cook me some sushi and make me some rice and you yellow chump and all this other stuff that he said earlier about Pacquiao, when you tack this on, it's just a trend at this point. So Mayweather is a clown. Just hurry up and fight and go to jail for beating your baby mama in front of your kids, you loser.
Yeah, and fighting guys that just aren't at your level. I mean, that's the way you go and make tons of money doing it. It's kind of sad. But again, it's another example, Lee, of Mayweather making the sport in general look bad. I mean, the only time the common fan hears about boxing, other than maybe once, if we're lucky, twice a year when there's a really big super fight, maybe the common fan will pay attention a little bit. Outside of that, what they hear is Mayweather. You know why? Because on SportsCenter, they're reading Mayweather's tweets, or they're reading what he did last night, or the fact that he got arrested, or the fact that he's throwing money up in the air on camera. I mean, that's basically what boxing is to pretty much the common fan, and it makes me mad because obviously, you and I and everybody listening to the show love boxing. And I don't like to see it brought down like that. But I want to bring up a different point here, Lee. And I'll put you on the spot a little bit because I know we haven't talked about this. You had Tim Tebow in football, right? I mean, superstar guy, obviously a white guy, but it doesn't matter. I mean, just off the charts. ESPN was on him every single day. Every single day they had a Tim Tebow story. Now Lynn is blowing up. I mean, the guy's been playing a week and a half, and you would think he's like, a guaranteed Hall of Famer. And every day they lead off SportsCenter with Lynn. Rightably so, but the sport is just huge, and he's the guy everybody's talking about. What will it take for something like that in boxing to happen? I mean, I understand because they fight 1, 2, 3 times a year, maybe, that it can't be like an in-the-ring thing. But is there any way that boxing can get a positive story about a fighter that can be talked about pretty much on a daily basis, or is that pretty much ship sailed?
I think the only way for the U.S., okay, the only way would be for some young guy to sort of have a Pacquiao sort of rise, and he has to be American.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Pacquiao kind of burst onto the scene to hardcore fans when he knocked out Lilo Ledwaba, because that just kind of came out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden he's like jumping up and away, he's going to fight Barrera. I remember distinctly telling people Barrera was going to decapitate Pacquiao back then. I was like, who's this Pacquiao guy? What is he thinking? Jumping up, and he destroyed Barrera. Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Mexican fans were like, whoa, okay, this guy Pacquiao just beat down Barrera. And then of course there was this whole thing with Morales and Marquez and whatnot. And then he just sort of took off from there. And then when he beat De La Hoya, Pacquiao sort of crossed over, became sort of this mega star, but as mega star as he could be without being American. Somebody like that who has a run, and I gotta throw in this sort of addendum here. It's got to be a weight higher than middleweight or higher.
Yeah, because underneath nobody would care.
Yeah, the only reason people in America even care about Pacquiao, or care about any of the lower weight classes, is because of Pacquiao and Mayweather, because they fight at welter and they were lighter than that before. Ordinarily in this country, American fans that are just sort of casual fans to maybe even slightly more than casual, they don't care at all about these lighter. You go to any office in this country and you start talking about junior welterweights, people will be like, what are you talking about? Well, you talk about middleweight. Yeah, they remember middleweight. They remember Marvin Hagler, or they probably heard of Bernard Hopkins. Or you say light heavyweight, dude, that's a traditional class. Of course, heavyweights. Everybody here loves heavyweights. But it would take something like that. An American on a meteoric rise at middleweight or higher, and then I think you could start seeing some mainstream SportsCenter type of coverage. Other than that, it's going to have to be Mayweather fights Pacquiao.
Yep.
Or somebody young that looks like they're the goods scores a major win over Pacquiao or Mayweather, and we have a guy who's got a chance with that coming up here in Tim Bradley. He's young, he's American, he's got some promise. If he can score the upset of Pacquiao, that will be a big story for a while, because you know why? It'll lead to a Mayweather fight also.
True, and I mean, you laid out pretty much every reason other than some. And I would say, U.S., but I would say probably a bigger deal if it was a white dude, honestly, but it could be an African-American or a black dude. One of those, like a heavyweight division guy, just start wrecking people and take the titles. I mean, I think that would cause some kind of fervor, at least here in the U.S., the same as Tebow and Lynn have done. But I agree. I mean, outside of Pacquiao, Mayweather being signed, because they would talk about that every day until that fight happens. No question about it. They would have some kind of update on that fight until it happens. And then I agree with you. It's some other dude like a Pacquiao that just makes a rise, just beating. The one downside I see with Bradley, even if Bradley goes out, say, beats Pacquiao, and even if he goes out and beats Mayweather, I mean, obviously he'd become a superstar at that point if he could pull that off. But the thing that's going to hold him down is that he's still known as the guy who's kind of ducked people. I mean, he ducked Amir Khan. You know, he said some stupid things. He's made some bad decisions. He's not a 100% likable guy, honestly, Lee. I mean, he's a great fighter, and I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but he's got some thing on his resume and things that he's done in his past and even said that kind of turned us off a little bit, I think, would turn some people off. But I agree, that's probably the closest thing we could come to, at least here in the U.S., to a boxing version of a Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, here's the thing, too. Bradley ducking Khan, I think for the hardcore boxing community, yeah, everybody remembers that. The normal fan, the guy who watches boxing 3 times a year because he watches Pacquiao or Mayweather and then maybe like one other fight at some friend's house or so, he doesn't even know who the guys are. That guy, he doesn't know that Bradley ducked Khan. All he would know is Bradley beat Pacquiao.
True.
You know, he'd be like, "Oh my God, this guy's the greatest guy in the world, instant Hall of Famer, best ever." You know, this is our casual fans that jump to these types of conclusions. So I don't know that would matter, but I do think you're right in the sense that you said if it was a white guy, the white guy aspect of it, if it was a guy like, you know, the Great White Hope that everybody's always looking for, if that sort of guy had this meteoric rise, I think it would get the overdose coverage on ESPN and stuff, because it would be like a Tebow story. It would just be so weird, especially at heavyweight. You know what I mean?
That would be the kicker. A white heavyweight,
white
guy
American heavyweight.
Yeah, that's just wrecking people and taking all the titles would be huge.
Now, as far as being a black guy, I mean, if it's a black guy and he's crushing dudes like Mike Tyson was, yeah, that'll blow up too. I mean, don't get it twisted. I mean, Mike Tyson, you and I grew up in his heyday. That was a phenom. I couldn't get enough of Mike Tyson. I mean, I was like, I could not. All I could think about was Tyson fights. When he was getting ready to fight, I was going crazy for weeks because I'm just like, oh God, I gotta find a way to watch this if it's not on free TV. You know, like whatever's going on. I remember it was just nuts. But Charlie, you know, speaking of this, though, so like you said, we have a bunch of fights we're going to preview in this show, and you had mentioned at the start of the show that there was no fights to recap, and that's of course because we didn't break any down last week because you know, the Berto fight got canceled. But one thing we should talk about, there was a fight. Luis Lazarte, you know, the Argentina guy, Jean-Riel Casimero, Filipino, went over there. He was the challenger for Lazarte's title. And he ends up stopping Lazarte, and wouldn't you know it, a whole bunch of Argentinian thug hoodlums just bum rushed the ring and jacked Casimero and his crew. I think Casimero's like manager or advisor or whatever the guy was. Got like cracked ribs. He got like punched in the face. He got like kicked and just beat down. I mean, it's just madness. It's all over the internet. You can see it on the Ring Magazine's website. You can see it on Fight News. It's on ESPN's website. Absolutely insane. What do you make of that scene? And of course, there's this whole debacle about the Filipino Senate actually pulled their delegation of people, their Argentinian envoy of, you know, politicians that are living in the country. They told them to come back to the Philippines because they're so pissed about this. But what do you make of that?
Well, first of all, that shows you how important boxing is to other countries.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it would be. If that happened here, same kind of incident happened here, it would be on Sports Center every day, and they would be talking about how, you know, sad it is, but nobody would care politically, honestly. But, you know, that's why I look at it, Lee. I look at it as it's a sad and embarrassing thing to happen. But first, you take the actual fight. Casimero is a great fighter. I'm not surprised he won at all. I mean, he's very talented. If you've seen him fight before, he had a little bit of trouble. I think he lost a fight or two that he shouldn't have, but he's got great talent, so I'm not surprised that he won at all. But the fact that everything happened, and obviously this has nothing to do with Lazarte or his corner, it has to do with the Argentinian fans. It's just embarrassing. I mean, look what this does. Not only is it going to cause strife now with the Philippines in a, you know, an actual, you know, foreign exchange type issue, but outside of that, what fighter in his right mind is going to go to Argentina now for a big fight? None. Zero. It's not going to happen now. They that ship has sailed. They're not going to get any of the big money fights from these guys outside of the country. It's going to be strictly Argentinian fighters fighting each other. Nobody's going to come out. I'm talking about big name guys. Obviously, you're trying to make a name for yourself. You may go over there and fight a decent guy, but outside of that, so they lose out. They lose out twice. They look bad on an international stage, and then they look bad in the boxing community, and they're going to hurt themselves financially in the process, and it's just embarrassing all the way around.
You and I have been at fights where near riots break out.
Quite a few.
It's a little, disconcerting when you're near it. I've been in the middle of a few fracases that were where I'm really starting to think of two things. Who do I got to sucker punch to get out of that thing? And two, am I going to go to jail because if somebody sucker punches me, then I'm swinging? And when it gets like that, it's a little bit hokey. And when it just becomes a full-on riot, it's not only disgraceful, it's freaking scary, dude. I mean, seriously, nobody wants to get hit with flying chairs. You don't want some
bottles.
Yeah, you don't want some guy that you have no beef with all of a sudden just bum rushing you because there's a melee going on. He doesn't care who he's hitting. I remember, for instance, you and I were at both the second and third Gotti Ward fights. The third one was very cordial. All the Italians, all the Irish fans, they were all very cordial because of the mutual respect that was gained in those first two fights. But the second fight, I don't know if you remember, in the bathrooms, the Irish and Italian fans were really getting into it. And it was to the point where we were surrounded by Italians going for Gotti. And I was like, dude, this is going to erupt into a major nobody's ever accusing Italians of shying away from a fight. Okay. and Irishmen, they don't mind getting in fights either. So, there was a lot of weird stuff going on at that thing. I was a little bit worried about. I'll tell you the one, though, that was a little bit nuts was the Jermaine Taylor-Kelly Pavlik fight we were at.
That was
the first fight. And you remember Kelly Pavlik rolled deep to Atlantic City that time. He brought. I remember there was like entire vans, like actual humongous like moving vans that had Kelly Pavlik stuff painted on the sides. These people were traveling deep.
Dude, we were surrounded by Pavlik fans, and I think we both were going for Taylor at that point in time, but we kind of kept it on the DL a little bit.
Dude, when Taylor knocked Pavlik down in the second round, I jumped up and was all in that guy's face, like dogging him. And then when Pavlik ends up winning, they were like surrounding me. I was like, dude, I'm going to get jumped in this scene because we were going crazy. But, it's just talking about the riot. You saw what happened with Bo and Holyfield when the fan man came in. Like that type of scene, that has to stop. People need to be more respectful if you go to fights. You and I go to a ton of fights. I've gotten to the point now where I'm at an age where I don't like the madness anymore. I like the people being respectful. I'm not saying I don't throw back a few brews as we've discussed in the past, but I don't like to get so out of control where I would just feed into that sort of atmosphere. So those guys, the Argentinian fans who did that, you guys are bums because that was weak. Jumping a guy because he beat your boy, beat him fair and square too. So you guys are losers. Now, why would anybody go to Argentina to fight a hometown guy if that's what you got to worry about? So that just hurts the whole economy down there, if you ask me. So Matisse and Maidana and all those guys, I think they'll be not fighting any big names down there anytime soon.
Oh, I totally agree. That's my point. And we'll see what happens. I mean, if this happened in the U.S., we know it'd be on the news for a while, but what would happen was they would find video camera, phone cameras, everything they could to find people who were doing anything illegally or just bum rushing other people, and they would start arresting these people. Let's say if Argentina, the authorities over there, start doing the same thing. If they do, I give them some respect, but if they just say, you know what, it was a horrible incident, we'll leave it at that, then I'd lose a little bit of respect because it shows they have no control over, events and no control in the aftermath. I mean, you could have a riot if there's no retribution from it. What's to stop them from doing it again? It's just how it is. So I hope I hope it doesn't happen. I hope there is some retribution for these people who were involved in this thing, but we'll see. But either way, Casimiro, great fighter, great win for him. And, I'm just glad he didn't get hurt too badly or hurt at all, in this melee and got out of the ring in time.
And I remember a friend of mine was actually in Vegas, I think it was Vegas, for the Zap Judah Floyd Mayweather fight where a riot pretty much broke out there. I heard, he wasn't up in the mix, but he said from where he was sitting, he's like, dude, he's like, that was nuts too. But speaking of Mayweather, Charlie, we have to talk about this before we move on into the show. So they announced two of the fights on the undercard of Mayweather Cotto. One fight's finalized, one fight is basically finalized, but they haven't officially said it is yet, but it pretty much is. The fight that is finalized and is being ridiculed, across the board by everybody with, one or two functioning brain cells or more. Canelo Alvarez taking on, let's see, could it be any of the good 154-pounders? I don't know, Austin Trout. I don't know, K9 Bundridge, Vanes Martirosyan, Kirkland, Angulo, on and on and on, right? Could it be any of those guys? Because, Canelo is big, bad WBC champion, right? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Shane Mosley. What? Shane freaking Mosley is fighting Canelo, which is just weak. And then, of course, the fight that's not exactly signed, Winky Wright against Kid Chocolate. Winky, dude. I haven't fought in 10 years, Wright against Kid Chocolate.
Yeah, isn't Winky Wright dead or something? I mean, obviously I know he's not dead, but look, that's a horrible fight. I mean, obviously that's worse of the two, I think. Winky Wright's boring as it is. An old Winky Wright is going to be deathly boring. I mean, Kid Chocolate, he's an exciting fighter. It'll be good to see him go in there and hopefully beat down an older, Winky Wright who shouldn't be in the ring anyway. So good for Kid Chocolate for getting in there. I don't know why they would sign this fight. Like, how did they come up with Winky Wright and pull him out of retirement to get this fight? I don't know how that conversation went, but so be it. And then you mentioned Canelo and Mosley. I mean, what's up with Mosley? He hasn't won, I think 3 fights in a row now he hasn't won. I think there was a draw in there to Mora, and then he lost, of course, to Pacquiao, and the fight previously, it's slipping, Mayweather before that. Devastating losses. I mean, not even one round in those 2 losses. And then his only victory outside of that was Margarito when he wasn't cheating, which is proved now to be a very subpar type fighter. I mean, why would Mosley at his age want to take on a guy with the speed, power, and popularity of a Canelo? I understand the money aspect. He gets to be on TV again. I mean, look, fighting is in his blood. I mean, that's what he is. Shane Mosley is a fighter. But this is a bad fight for him. He is in danger of being seriously hurt, Lee, because I think Canelo has the power and the speed to really put some damage on Mosley's brain. But otherwise, I mean, why would Canelo take this fight? Is he doing it because he wants to be seen as dominating the guy that people know? I mean, that's the only way I look at it. People will be watching this Mayweather-Cotto fight. They'll say, yeah, I know Shane Mosley. He made it been great like 10 years ago. And they see this young kid, Canelo, the ginger Mexican dude, put a beating on Mosley, and maybe he'll get some more popularity from that. That's the only way I see this, but it's kind of sad that Canelo's resorting to this when he's so good already.
Yeah, the reason Canelo's taking that fight is because Canelo's a fraud. I mean,
well, that's the roundabout. I was saying the roundabout way.
and ironically, so what does Canelo say recently? He's like, basically dogging Mayweather, saying that Mayweather is always fighting hand-picked opponents and that it's pretty weak. It's like, hey, Canelo, have you looked in a mirror lately? Because your entire career is hand-picked opponents, most of which come from a lighter weight class who get favorable rankings to challenge for your stupid title.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to call Mayweather out? Now, I agree. Mayweather's entire career has been built, with the exception of the Jose Luis Castillo first fight. His whole career has been built on hand-picking opponents, guys that were made to order for him, guys that were coming off losses, coming off draws, guys that were moving up in weight. So I agree with him. But Canelo, you do the exact same thing, and now you're fighting Shane Mosley. Another funny thing I heard, though, Charlie, some guy on Twitter said this. It's like, so on that card, we have money, we have cinnamon, we have sugar, we have chocolate and Winky. And the guy goes, this sounds like a strip club more than a fight.
That's what it should. It should take place at a strip club because that's how bad it is. I mean, Canelo can say whatever he wants. I mean, at least Cotto's got a puncher's chance. I mean, at least Cotto's still somewhere near, the better side of his career, although obviously he's on the downside. Mosley has no shot. I mean, this guy is totally beat, 40 years old. I mean, just didn't have that much power really to begin with. I mean, so Canelo to say that right now is embarrassing because it actually makes Mayweather look a little bit better when you're talking about this card specifically. Of course, we can go into what Mayweather's done in the past, but I don't think you can argue that Mayweather's at least taken on the better, more live opponent here, Cotto, than Canelo is, against Mosley.
Yeah, no doubt. And then they say also, Canelo claims he has a deal in place that if he beats Mosley, he gets to fight the winner of Cotto Mayweather, which I'd love to see that because both Mayweather and Cotto would smash the crap out of Canelo. So I'd like to see that because Canelo, to me, he's picking on like 108-pounders. He's talking all his trash like he's some kind of gangster, yet he fights nobodies. So I'm tired of Canelo. I don't care that he's super popular. The guy's a fraud. See, at least Chavez, Chavez we've accused of being a fraud too, but at least he's starting to get better. I don't know that Canelo's getting any better. Like, he just keeps fighting bum after bum after bum, so we don't even know. But Charlie, that's all we got there for the current event stuff. I say we jump right in to our main event.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's main event.
All right, so of course the main event this time, Charlie, is one of the rare occurrences nowadays, a heavyweight fight that's actually going to be interesting. And then wouldn't you know, it happens to involve Vitaly Klitschko. Vitaly Klitschko taking on another guy that everybody's saying is like one of the guys out there to fight, Derek Chisora, a Brit, looked great against Helenius, got jobbed in that fight. He easily won 10 rounds, got totally screwed. So he comes into this fight, Charlie, 15-2, 9 knockouts, 12 years younger than Vitaly at 28 years old, 6 inches shorter, though. Right-handed guy. And, of course, Vitaly Klitschko, Charlie, amazing record, 43-2 with 40 knockouts, but he is 40 years old, 6'7", obviously, and, of course, WBC champ. So what do you think about this? Vitaly, let's talk about him first.
Yeah, I mean, here we go with the Klitschkos again, Lee. It's the same story. We've been saying this for 2 years at least now that it's the same thing with these guys. And, look, one thing people like to knock the Klitschkos, saying their quality opposition hasn't been that great. The heavyweight division is down. One thing you cannot say about the Klitschkos in general is the fact that they do fight the best, available opposition, no matter how good that opposition is. They've basically taken on anybody you could ever possibly say could give them a chance to get beaten. One of the brothers has taken on that guy, so that's impressive overall. But let's get to Vitaly specifically here, Lee. I mean, the guy has got to be on the downside of his career at some point. I mean, we keep saying, is this when he gets old? Is this when he gets old? But he continues to pull off these victories. Now, granted, I mean, I think anybody who's watched him closely and seen his last few fights has seen a significant downslide in Vitaly Klitschko, and tell me if you agree. But the one thing I've noticed specifically, maybe it's his conditioning or just his age, but his legs seem to be getting a little bit loose in his fights. He's losing them a little bit. It looks a little bit shaky. Obviously, that's the first thing that goes, especially when you're as big as he is at that age. So that's kind of concerning to me. I mean, we saw it against Solis a little bit. I think we definitely saw it against Adamek, where he had some trouble with that, with basically just his balance and his leg and his footwork. So that's one thing that we need to look for negatively outside of Klitschko. But outside of that, Lee, I still expect the same driven Klitschko. I mean, he's trained hard. He's still got the great chin, the great jab, the great power. Everything else, I think, is still there, but it looks like he's slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you on anything you said about that. I mean, I think it's clear that that's happening, but the guy's 40.
Yeah, well, I mean that's...
yeah, I mean, these things will happen, as we all know, but I think between him and Vladimir, and we've talked about this, they fight every top guy out there that's willing to fight them. And, I mean, and they destroy these guys.
Yeah, destroy.
Yeah, and if you look at Vitaly since the Lennox Lewis fight, which I think he would have won had that fight not got stopped because of the cuts, Okay, since the Lennox fight, he's fought 3 undefeated top guys, Solis, Kevin Johnson, Chris Arreola. Stopped 2 of them. Kevin Johnson's the guy he didn't stop. Johnson didn't land a punch for 12 rounds because the guy was just running the entire time. He's fought 4 guys with 1 loss each that were considered top guys. Adamek, Juan Carlos Gomez, Sam Peter back in the heyday, and then Kirk Johnson. Stopped all of those guys. Now he's fighting the top guy left, Derek Chisora. Clearly beat Helenius. Vitali deserves a lot of credit, I think. And the fact that he's 40 and doing this is just super impressive. Only loss in the past 8 or 9 years was to Lennox by cuts. And he was winning by 2 rounds on all the cards at the time of that stoppage. Lennox was fading badly. Vitali's won 11 straight, 9 by knockout. Here's the thing that I was enjoying when I looked this up. Combined record of those 11 guys that he's beaten in a row, Charlie, 385 wins, 16 losses, 4 draws. That's pretty damn solid. And, dominates these guys. Rarely loses a round. I think officially he's lost like 4 or 5 rounds on the cards total in the last 11 fights. The last fight against Adamek, where everybody was like, Adamek has a very good chance, he won every single round on all 3 cards before he stopped him in the 10th round, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I'm almost speechless. It's just amazing. Well, I was speechless there, but it's amazing how good Vitali maintains to be. So let's look at Chisora, Lee. And the main question comes to, because we know what Klitschko is going to do in the ring, and we know, what he's going to bring to the table. What can Chisora do differently that the last few fighters that have fought, Vitali could not do? What Adamek couldn't do, what Solis, what Briggs couldn't do, even Sosnowski, a few fights ago. What does Chisora bring to the table that these guys didn't is my main question, because when I look at it, just on paper at least, Chisora reminds me of a Samuel Peter, a little bit younger Samuel Peter, but he's so short, so big and bulky, and just doesn't really have the knockout power. I mean, I find it hard to see him winning, a lot of rounds against Klitschko. If he's going to win this fight, and if you're predicting him or anybody out there is predicting Chisora to win, I would imagine it's got to be by a knockout. But either way, what do you think here of Chisora? What do you think he could possibly bring to the table that these other guys hasn't?
Well, look, Helenius was a towering figure. I mean, massive guy, right? And he has skills. He was hyped as the next heir to the Klitschko throne and everything. Chisora did what these other guys don't do against Klitschko's, which is he got inside the much taller man. And he did it easily. And he was aggressive when he was in there. He was landing tons of shots. Showed he can take big shots too, because Helenius can punch, and Chisora was eating those shots, and they weren't really affecting him. And the man's ultra confident. Okay, and I think that's just absolutely critical if you fight either one of these Klitschkos. More so against Vladimir. I think confidence goes a long way against Vladimir. Less so against Vitali, but you still need it. So you have a guy here now, Charlie. He's 12 years younger. He's very hungry, proven that he can fight against a 6'7" or taller guy. With that confidence, he's coming to win. So the question is, as with all Vitali opponents, is he going to continue to try and win if it becomes clear in those first few rounds that he can't get past the patented Vitali jab, sort of slap left hook thing that he does all the time to keep people at bay? Remember, Arreola couldn't get past it and basically just looked like he quit. Adamek, after a while, couldn't get past it, just absolutely looked like he just got discouraged and quit. Couple things about Chisora, though, Charlie. The loss to Tyson Fury, who's also another big man. That was a little bit troubling to me, but think about this. Chisora weighed 261 pounds for that fight. It just looked awful. For Helenius, he came in nice, lean, 243. And I think that's the weight he's going to need for this fight, because that's also right around the weight he was for his 2 best wins, Danny Williams, Sam Sexton. So I think the key for him is going to be mobility and the ability to get on the inside and be effective in there, because I really think the only weakness in Vitali's game other than his age is his inside game. I don't think he's all that comfortable with inside fighting. I think he's ultra comfortable on the outside and can so easily control and dominate a fight from out there that he's not real comfortable when people get inside. So that's the only chance Chisora has, is to just deal with the pain, get in there and get to work.
Yeah, I mean, and look, what Chisora is basically known for is this high work rate. he didn't do it against Fury because he came in so overweight that he just tired out. So I think he learned from that. He looked great against Hellenius. He should have won that fight. He threw, almost 700, a little less than 700 punches in that fight against Hellenius. That's a lot for a heavyweight, especially a guy who's up around 240. It's a lot of punches. I see that as being the key to his victory here. If he can outwork Klitschko, then he can win rounds and win this fight. I mean, that's the way I see his victory. If he just lands more punches, really gets into the face of Klitschko, makes Klitschko actually work instead of the other way around, then I see positive things for Chisora. But like you said, the loss to Fury, really raises some eyebrows here. And you got to admit, I mean, the guy's inexperienced. He's only fought 17 fights, whereas Klitschko obviously has probably had the title more than 17 fights. I know that's not reality, but he's fought, over 45 fights in his career, and it seems like he's had the title forever and had title fights. So he's been there. And this is obviously a huge step up in class for Chisora. He's fought nobody even near the level of Klitschko. We're mentioning guys like Fury and, Hellenius as, quality opposition for Chisora. That doesn't even hold a candle to Klitschko. So there's many, many downsides here to Chisora. So, Lee, if you want to go ahead and add something else, go ahead and do it. But then why don't you hit us with your prediction and how you see this fight actually going down?
Yeah, look, I'll give a prediction here. I mean, it's one of the rare heavyweight fights that I actually want to see, and it's going to be on epixhd.com. If you don't have Epix as far as your cable goes, you can watch it online. I think you have to, fake register or something to get in there. But I've created, 5 different phony accounts just to keep – I don't know if they let you keep on doing it with the same name. So I just make up some crap so I can get on there. But I think Chisora is going to actually prove to some people that he's a legit heavyweight. I actually like Chisora ever since that Hellenius fight. I think he's fun to watch. I think he's a guy that's got a future. And given Vitali's age, I think we're going to actually see him lose a few rounds this fight, especially as the fight sort of wears on. But I think early on, when they have all their energy, I think Vitali's going to just dominate the fight as he usually does. Jab, left hook combo, the occasional right hand bomb right down the chute. And every time he lands that, he hurts people. I mean, it takes something out of you. He's not a crushing KO puncher, Vitali isn't, but he hurts you with his heavy-ass shots, So he will do damage. Now, I think Chisora in the middle rounds, I think he's going to get in there. I think he's going to do some solid work, and I think that's where he's going to take a few rounds. But then in the end, I think they're both going to get a little bit tired, and I think that's where Vitali is just going to be too good for him. I think at age 40, he's just still too good, too crafty. I think he's going to take control back, and I think he's going to get a late stoppage again. So I'm going to go Vitali. I'm going to say 11th round stoppage with Chisora on his feet, though. I don't think it's going to be him knocked out. I think it's going to be ref or corner stoppage in the 11th. So I got Vitali continuing the impressive knockout run that he's on his whole career.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the blueprint or the predictions we've had for the last, 10 fights. I mean, actually, we slowly say he'll lose a round or two. I mean, that's changed a little bit. But outside of that, it's pretty much the same. And I can't disagree with most of it. I do think it'll be a pretty good, entertaining, exciting fight early on, mainly because of Chisora's high work rate and the fact that Klitschko's just getting older. He can't keep up that work rate. He's got to be a smarter fighter. And I think that's going to make it exciting. Klitschko may lose a round or two early, maybe down in this fight, Lee, heading into the 4th or 5th round. But I think that's really where the fight's going to change. Klitschko is going to stay in his rhythm. I think Chisora is going to wear down a little bit, maybe get a little bit tired, and is done. Klitschko will take that opportunity to win this fight. Same way you see it pretty much using the jab, the great defense, start landing big shots, really start hurting Chisora. The only thing I disagree with you, I think Chisora will be on his back in this fight. I think mainly it'll be because he's just so big and he'll be so tired that Klitschko is going to start landing these bombs, and his legs are not going to be able to hold himself up. So I see it as an actual stoppage, but Chisora will be out on his back. I'm going to call for the 10th round stoppage victory TKO here for Klitschko in a pretty good fight early on, but Klitschko is going to obviously be the winner in the end.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's nothing short of impressive if Chisora does win some rounds, because everybody thought Adamek was going to give him a run for his money. He lost every single round on all 3 cards decisively. Adamek.
Yeah.
And Adamek was like a top-notch guy and got absolutely hammered Klitschko is not to be trifled with, man. This dude is legit, and he's tough as nails, mentally, physically. The guy's just rough and rugged. But Charlie, that's it for the main event. We do have a whole bunch more here for you guys. We got 2 fight speed bag coming up at the very end. We also have a special toss-up segment that we're going to do. But before we do that, Charlie, let's continue our sort of who's our favorite fighter out of each division thing that we started last week. And let's do heavyweights this week since we just talked about a heavyweight fight. Why don't you go ahead and give us your favorite? Now, remember, these are your favorite fighters out of these divisions, not necessarily who you think is the best. So who's your favorite heavyweight as a sort of tribute here to this heavyweight fight we just broke down?
Yeah, again, let me repeat that. It's not who I think is the best. It's who I think is my favorite and who I think is exciting, because don't send in your emails and tell me how crazy I am when I start talking about this guy. And I'm going to mention Robert Helenius, who we've talked about just recently, Lee, with that fight that he basically was given over Chisora. It was in his home country of Finland. Obviously got the gift decision there. But outside of that, I mean, look, Helenius is not the prettiest guy to look at. I mean, he's just kind of a tall, big, bulky, white-looking dude or Swedish dude. Kind of got like hair on his chest. I mean, he's not pretty, but the guy is in exciting fights, Lee. I mean, we talk about the Chisora fight. Whether you say he was robbed or not, it was a great, entertaining heavyweight fight. If you haven't seen it, you should probably watch it on YouTube. But for heavyweights, it's an amazing fight. Before that, Liakovic actually knocked out or stopped Liakovic. Pretty good victory. And then he knocked out Samuel Peter. Devastating knockout before that. So the guy's got great power. He's got 11 KOs out of his 17 victories. He only has a 17 fight, so he's still young. And he is fighting, outside of those top heavy guys I've mentioned. He fought a lot of guys from Finland and Germany, where he actually lives now, that you've never heard of. Build up his record a little bit, build up his knockout ratio. But from what I've seen of him, Lee, against quality opposition, basically judging against Peter, Liakovic, and Chisora, the guy is exciting. He brings back, true fighting in the heavyweight division, not a lot of holding. He throws big punches. He gets hit a lot. I mean, that's what makes it a guy exciting, is the fact that, sometimes he's almost out on his own feet before he comes back and knocks the other guy out. All these things combined, it makes me say right now that Helenius is probably my favorite fighter in the division, just because of his excitement factor. When you're talking about the heavyweight division, excitement and heavyweight division does not go hand in hand, especially in the last, say, 15 years.
Yeah, I got no problem with that at all. I actually like Helenius a lot, too. The guy's always in exciting fights, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that 2 of the guys he's fought recently happen to be 2 of the more exciting guys out there, and that, of course, is Chisora and Sergei Liakovic. Both guys are very exciting. My favorite here, this is probably not a big surprise to people. I've always been a fan of this guy. I know he's not the most aesthetically pleasing guy to watch all the time, but he has been in some fun ones. I've been to a bunch of his, or not a bunch, I've been to a couple of his fights that were in the United States. I'm going to say Vladimir Klitschko.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. He's 56-3, 49 knockouts. Seems like a pretty good guy out of the ring, in the ring, honorable. Does funny stuff like the whole David Hay video where he's showing pictures of like Hay flopping all fight, against him, and he's like, Vladimir looks at the picture and starts shaking his head like clown. Shows another picture, he's just dogging Hay. Like, that stuff's funny to me. He was on the Jim Rome show a bunch of times. He was pretty entertaining on that. He was dating Hayden Panettiere, the chick from Heroes. So he's like kind of going Hollywood a little bit. He's got a PhD, speaks like 5 languages. I mean, so there's a lot about him that I find interesting, outside of him just being a really good fighter. Then, of course, there's the fact that he's just been dominating for so long. Povetkin was running away from him. Hay ducked him for years, but he finally got him and just destroyed him, made him look like a clown, which I loved because I just can't stand David Hay. But since 2005, Charlie, Vladimir's fought 8 guys with 0 or 1 loss on their records. Okay? He's beaten guys. Look at this: Sam Peter a couple times, Calvin Brock, Chris Bird a couple times, Eddie Chambers, Shagayev, Rockman, Tony Thompson, Sultan Ibragimov, Layman Brewster, Ray Austin. I mean, that's all in the last 6 years. He fought all those guys, and I mean, that's insane. Fights everybody, doesn't duck anybody, usually KOs dudes in brutal fashion. You remember the one punch pancake of Calvin Brock.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, that was like in the slow-mo. You know when they say sometimes you hit somebody and you feel the quake through your body? That punch sent shockwaves through Calvin Brock's life. I think it permanently altered his life. I think he actually had to just retire after that because he was just devastated. Maybe he had another fight in there. I don't know, but
dude, that sent shockwaves through me watching the fight.
That was one of the most punishing, heavy-handed punches, and Calvin Brock just laid out. He was undefeated at the time. That was awesome. But look, and then like you say, he does like charity work. He just seems like a cool guy. So I'm going to say Vladimir Klitschko, my favorite heavyweight, Charlie.
Yeah, I obviously can't deny that. I mean, we both laid out our reasons, both great reasons why we picked these guys. I love the Klitschkos. I've said it many times on the show. I even tried to defend it when we went live on the boxing show on XM with Jerry Cooney. He was just blasting the Klitschkos. I wish we had more time to get into that. But people who knock the Klitschkos, I just think aren't looking at it from the right lenses, because these guys are uber talented, have fought basically everybody they could. I mean, I've laid it out many times, but big fan of the Klitschkos as well. I just love watching Hellenius right now. He's a very exciting heavyweight.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, like I said. But Charlie, let's go ahead and have a little bit of fun here. We have a segment here that we've called this segment a number of different things. We've called it the standing 8 count. We've called it the toss-up segment. Really don't know what to call it. Let's just call it a toss-up segment here. It's kind of a rip-off of Pardon the Interruption that we do here. But we're going to talk about a few fights in this segment that basically are worth mentioning, but we didn't feel like breaking them down officially, so we thought we'd just come up with a way to talk about them that's a little more entertaining. So we're going to have 2 of these toss-up questions, Charles, so let's jump right into the first one. Toss-up, least significant super middleweight fight this weekend with the word title in it. Okay, you ready for this? IBF super middleweight title eliminator, Adonis Stevenson versus Jesus Gonzalez, or WBA interim super middleweight title fight, Brian McGee versus Rudy Markuson. So which one is least significant out of these 2 168-pound so-called title fights?
Yeah, well, they're pretty both insignificant, I'll tell you right off the bat. But answer me this, because since you are the organization god, how is McGee Merkinson for an interim WBA title? Explain that to me right now off the bat.
Because McGee won that belt, the interim champion belt, like in his last fight or 2 fights ago or whatever it was, for no reason. There was already 2 guys that are champs. I don't know why, but he does have that.
That's exactly my point. There's already 2 guys who hold the WBA title, but yet McGee, of all people, holds the interim title and taking on McKerson. I mean, this is a bad fight all the way around, Lee. I mean, McGee's 36 years old. McKerson, 34 years old, so you got a bunch of old guys in there fighting. McKerson ranked 12th in the rankings, so how he even got this fight, I don't even know. I mean, McGee goes out, gets crushed by Butte, and I think you mentioned it, for the title, he beat some guy named Jamie Barboza and won that title. The great title fight there, Lee. And McKerson has beaten nobody. Look at his resume. I mean, there's not one guy I recognize on that resume. So that says a lot to me, because I at least recognize most names out there that are worthy to remember. But as bad as that fight is, Lee, I think I would have to lean towards the Stevens-Gonzalez eliminator that you talked about for multiple reasons. For one, these guys, Stevenson ranked 15th by the IBF, okay? Gonzalez ranks 12th by the IBF. How is a guy ranked 15th and 12th fighting for an eliminator for anything is beyond me, other than elimination from the sport in general, because they're both that bad. Stevenson, 34 years old, older guy. He beat Aaron Pryor Jr. I guess you could say that's a decent victory, but he lost to Darnell Boone. Not a good victory. Other than that, really hasn't fought anybody. And then you look at Jesus Gonzalez here. I mean, he was the last guy to beat Ward. You're like, oh my God, Andre Ward? Yeah, when they were 12 years old. I mean, come on, the guy's still living his career off of that victory that he got over Andre Ward when they were like 12 years old. And in his last fight, Lee, he lost to a guy, Jose Zertucci, or I've heard of Zertucci, so maybe you have. Not a great opposition, but you shouldn't be losing to that guy, and then you certainly shouldn't be in an eliminator fight after that. So just based off that factor alone, based off their rankings here, Lee, and based off the fact that neither of these guys have really done anything, yet they're in any kind of eliminator type fight here for the IBF, I have to go with Stevenson Gonzalez as the least significant bout with quote title in the title.
Well, Gonzalez has won 10 straight, so that Zertucci loss was a while back, if I remember correctly. So you might want to go ahead.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I was going to say so here's how I see this, Charlie. As far as these fights go, Stevenson, he's won 3 in a row, or 3 okay fights in a row. Like you say, just knocked out Aaron Pryor Jr., which I classify that as a good win. Aaron Pryor Jr. had scored a few good W's, so that's a good win. Gonzalez, 10 straight victories against lesser opposition. Okay, it's not the worst thing in the world. The problem with this fight, it's for the number 2 spot. It's in the eliminator for the number 2 spot, that's just trash. Okay, you're not even getting an eliminator for the 1 spot, which isn't even the mandatory either. Okay, in the IBF they have a 1 and a 2, and then you got to become mandatory. So this is like third, and it's like they talk about when you're on deck in baseball, and then they have what do they call the other thing? Like you're in the hole.
Yeah, in the hole on deck.
This is an eliminator to be in the hole, basically. So this is a garbage eliminator. And here's a funny thing. So the IBF just made Carl Froch Butte's mandatory.
Right.
Butte just lost his last fight, and he wasn't even ranked by the IBF at the time because he was WBC champ. So Froch wasn't even ranked, and he just got made mandatory by losing. And these guys have to fight each other to get in the hole, basically. So this is almost like an insult. This eliminator. This is like a slap in the face to these guys, if you ask me. Now McGee's belt is one of the most fraudulent belts in the world. Okay, first of all, Andre Ward is the real champion. We all know this. Okay, in WBA lingo, he's the super champ. Okay, then there's the regular champ, which is just idiotic phrasing. But Carolee Balse, who we've kind of had fun with that name in times, Carolee Balse. He's regular champ. Okay, McGee, for some super reason, is this interim champ, like you mentioned. What exactly does it even mean in this case? Is it supposed to, when I hear the word interim, okay, to me that's supposed to mean in the meantime, okay? So like while something else is going on, this is going to happen in the interim, okay? So in this case, while the real champ is out, yet both Andre Ward and Carolee Balse are healthy, so this belt is worth what, like $5 Monopoly dollars? I don't get this. Rudy Marcuson, Charlie. I mean, as far as opponents go, come on, man. What is this guy? This fight is so totally irrelevant to me. It's worse than Stevenson Gonzalez, which may actually turn out to be a decent scrap. This fight sucks. McGee, Marcuson, that fight is horrible. So to me, it wins the toss-up as the least significant here.
All right, so we actually disagree there, but both for good reasons. And I think, in the end, we both agree they're both just horrible fights. Although I would agree with you as well. I do think Stevenson Gonzalez will be a pretty entertaining fight, but the fact that they're both ranked in the double digits going for a number 2 spot is just asinine.
Yeah, it makes no sense at all. But all right, Charlie, let's jump into the second and final toss-up question here, Charlie. And this is going to compare basically the Friday night fights thing going on this weekend and also the Showbox thing going on. And here's where it is. Toss-up, more exciting televised main event that wasn't supposed to be a main event. And the reason we say that is because both Friday night fights and Showbox had pullouts for their main events, so these guys weren't even supposed to be in it at certain instances. So Friday night fights, Charlie, Mike Dallas Jr. versus Miguel Gonzalez got bumped up to the main event because Marvin Quintero versus John Molina fell apart, so they weren't supposed to be main event, but they are. And Thomas Delorme has had 2 different guys pull out against him as the main event on Showbox. So now Delorme is fighting Eris Ambrose. So Charlie, more exciting televised main event that shouldn't be a main event. Mike Dallas Jr. versus Miguel Gonzalez or Thomas Delorme, Eris Ambrose. What do you think?
Yeah, both of these are really not that exciting, for a watcher's point of view. So it's kind of a toss-up here. You look at Delorme, Ambrose. The one one thing negatively, other than it's just not going to be that great a fight, I see with this is the fact that Ambrose is kind of a late replacement for two other guys. It looks like Delorme was supposed to fight Jose Reynosa. Is that correct? That was the original opponent.
Yeah.
Well, Reynosa's the guy that actually beat up Ambrose back in the day. That was one of his 2 losses that Ambrose has suffered, was against Reynosa. So it looks like they basically said, who is Reynosa beaten, and let's put him on there. The fact that that's kind of a late replacement, the fact that Ambrose just really hasn't done much, lost 2 of his last 5 fights, fought a bunch of guys that you really wouldn't recognize here, coming off a victory against a guy named Juan Santiago. I mean, Delorme is just in a better class. He should easily win that fight. So that basically brings us to Dallas Jr. and Miguel Gonzalez here. Junior welterweight bout. This was originally what's supposed to be Marvin Quintero, the main event. At least this fight was actually scheduled to be on the card. They just bumped it up to the main event. So these guys have had the same amount of training. And the reason I would say this is more exciting main event, Lee, because for one, I think it has to be at least a better fight than Delorme Ambrose. I don't see much of a fight there. And for 2, there's importance in this fight because Dallas Jr. has got to win this fight. It's a guy that was highly ranked, a high prospect coming up. People very high on him, had a lot of skills. Then he finally moves up in opposition and loses. Moves up again, loses again. So he's lost his last 2 fights when he moved up in opposition. So it looks like he's not quite ready to take that step up, but he's still got the potential, still got all the skills. But if he goes out there, Lee, and loses to Miguel Gonzalez here, his career is pretty much done. So at least look at this fight. If Delorme loses to Ambrose, he can use the excuse, this wasn't supposed to be my original partner, blah, blah, his career goes on. Dallas Jr. loses this fight, I think he's finished. I mean, I don't think we'll really hear much from him ever again. So there's a lot more on the table. For that reason alone, it's more exciting to me because I want to see, what Dallas Jr. can do with his back against the wall and basically save his career, whereas the other fight's just a bad fight.
Yeah, look, Dallas Jr., 2 straight he lost, as you said, not considered the hot prospect anymore. Gonzalez has won 14 straight fights. Both guys are young, hungry, could be exciting. I mean, I don't know. I think Dallas Jr.'s style has gotten a little more skittish in those 2 losses. He's not,
sure.
Yeah, he's not quite as confident as he used to be, not quite as exciting, but it could be a good fight. Quintero Molina, for what it's worth, I think was going to be a really good main event because Quintero comes to fight. He's not the greatest. We've seen his chin get dented. Molina, very exciting as well. I think that fight would have been great, but of course, as far as replacements go, like you said, this was on the card anyways. Not a horrible fight. Now, Delorme, very fun to watch. Got a bright future. One of my favorite prospects, actually. But he needs to be tested. This guy Ambrose, he's not even the first replacement, as we said. He's the replacement's replacement. Okay, that's never good because Reynosa was actually the first replacement. And that usually means tomato can, Charlie. Whenever you when you start talking about like extra depth in the replacement chain, that's usually not good. The only time this guy Ambrose ever stepped up against Pierre-Olivier Cote, who's this guy who's getting pretty big in Canada, he got knocked down in 4 rounds. That's not a good sign, if you ask me. So I like Delorme. Out of these 4 guys, I like him the best. But I think this fight's pretty weak. So I'm going to say the more exciting fight out of the 2 is the Dallas Jr. versus Gonzalez fight on Friday Night Fights.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that that's going to be the better, more entertaining fight. Although I would also agree Delorme, the best fighter out of the bunch, but that doesn't mean he's going to be in the most exciting fight. So there you go. There was a little toss-up. We did something kind of different for you this week. So, Lee, unless there's anything else you want to add, we do have 2 other fights that we want to break down here in our speed bag.
Let's do it.
All right, Lee. So this is on, what is it, an HBO card this weekend? Showtime card. Excuse me for the blasphemy there for Showtime, but it's taking place on Showtime. It's Corpus Christi, Texas. Both of these fights. First fight here, Lee. Paul Williams back in the ring, and we mentioned this I think last week a little bit, or we've mentioned it throughout the year so far. Taking on Nobuhiro Ishida. Of course, Ishida's the guy who went out, knocked out James Kirkland in the first round, just devastating, and then obviously Kirkland's come back and looked great since then. Williams, Lee, in his last fight, Erislandy Lara, in probably one of the worst robberies of all time in the sport. And that says a lot when you're talking about a sport that has so much crookedness as boxing does. So what do you see in this fight? Do you give Ishida a chance, or do you think Paul Williams is basically done in his career? I mean, there's many different angles to look at this one. How do you see it?
Yeah, look, remember I've been tracking how many Golden Boy and or Al Heyman influenced cards make it on the Showtime now that the Golden Boy shill is running Showtime. There's another Heyman guy, Paul Williams. So yet another Showtime fight that caters to either of those people. This fight sucks to me. There's no other way to put it. First of all, we've gone over in detail about why this fight sucks, mainly because basically Al Heyman got Paul Williams a huge payday to fight Ishida, who we know caught a fresh out of jail and wolf-less James Kirkland, and he hit pay dirt on that one fight. That doesn't mean Ishida deserves to be in the main event on Showtime. Okay, it just doesn't. This fight is just a gift to Paul Williams, if you ask me. Like you mentioned, the Lara fight, just the absolutely absurd decision for Paul Williams. He should have lost that fight by a mile. The decision was so bad, all 3 judges got suspended by New Jersey. That doesn't happen very often. That means
Never.
It is egregious. Okay? That is just ridiculous. So really, Paul Williams doesn't deserve to be on Showtime either, because before that fight, what happened? He got starched face first in 2 rounds by Sergio Martinez. So he's really on a 2-fight losing streak, if you ask me. He doesn't deserve to be in the main event, period, on a premium network, let alone against Ishida. That's why I say this fight sucks. And really, it's just because the guy running Showtime now is a Golden Boy Al Heyman homer, so it doesn't surprise me. Ishida's 36. He's slow. He has 9 knockouts and 24 wins, and he has 6 losses to pretty much inferior fighters in Japan. And get this, Charlie. So what did Ishida do to capitalize on his great victory over Kirkland to propel him into this promised land of main event status on Showtime? Did he beat a top 10 guy? Did he show?
You'd think he'd go out, take on a big name, make a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I mean, or he could do what he actually did in his last fight, which was fight a guy making his pro debut. That is what Ishida did to get into this fight. So I could see the brilliant minds at Showtime. They're like, look here, I'm not too sure about this Ishida guy. What's he done? Hey, look, in his last fight, he beat a guy that had never fought before. Oh, he beat a guy who had never been in a professional ring before? Yeah, put him in the main event against Paul Williams. We think that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, this fight blows. I don't like it at all. I'm going to take Paul Williams' unanimous decision.
Yeah, pretty simple. Paul Williams, unanimous decision. I mean, what Ishida's done with his career is equivalent to, like, say, winning the Powerball. Oh man, I won $200 million cash and betting it all on black and losing. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. It's so insane to me that he pulled off a once in a lifetime type victory over Kirkland. Say what you want about Kirkland, it doesn't matter. Look at it from Ishida's perspective. He beats a guy that's 1 billion times better than he is, and basically catches him early and just knocks him out in the first round. Huge victory. You parlay that into money, into a TV appearance, into something, not a pro debut guy, and just beat him up. I mean, that's horrible. Ishida, the point being in the story, Lee, Ishida's not very good. His people know that he's not very good. That's why they didn't put him in there with a big name. The fact that Paul Williams is sitting here trying to get props by saying he's the only guy who will take on Ishida is insane. I laugh because it's like, dude, you're acting like Ishida's a good opposition when we all just want to, like, basically spit in your face and say that's a horrible opponent. What are you doing? Paul Williams, walk away, man. He's going to win this fight easily, not because Paul Williams is back, but because Ishida's that bad. And I actually read a story here real quickly, Lee, about how Paul Williams and his entire corner, his trainer, his cut man, his everybody involved with him, his cardio guy, basically does not see a problem with the fight with Lard. They just think, he won the fight. They don't see any issues with Williams. That's a bad sign right there. Everybody in the world sees that Williams has got some issues right now, and if his own people can't see it, that's going to lead to some problems down the road. But for this fight alone, Williams probably wins every single round, unanimous decision victory.
Yeah, his whole corner is in denial. Okay, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's spiked with purple drink. Okay, they're drinking the scissor. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But Charlie, let's move into our last fight here of the show. And this is our second speed bag fight. And this is, I guess you could call it a co-main event, because I don't know that this would deserve to be called undercard, because it's actually better than the main event. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we'll call this a co-main, and this is, of course, the IBF 175-pound light heavyweight title defense for Tavoris Thundercloud taking on Gabriel Campillo. Charlie, I'm actually very much looking forward to this fight. I mean, Cloud's one of the most exciting guys out there. You had said last week he's your favorite light heavyweight. Campillo, not a slouch either. 6'2" southpaw, and he's still only 33 years old. So, Charlie, Tavoris Cloud bringing the heat against a very worthy challenger, Gabriel Campillo. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think right away that the Cloud's putting me to the test as picking him as the most exciting fighter of the division when a week later he's in a big fight. So we'll see how exciting he is. But we know Cloud, I mean, he's going to come in ripped. He's strong. He's fast. He's got all the tools to make a great fighter. He just got to actually prove it in the ring. So that basically leans us toward Campillo. For those of you who don't know, Gabriel Campillo is he's a good quality tough fighter. Only 3 losses. 21 victories. He only has the 8 knockouts here, but that's not saying that he's a bad fighter. He's just not a strict knockout artist, and he's in some good, exciting fights. He's 33 years old. He only fought once in the U.S. league. That was to Babet Shuvanov, and he actually lost that one. I think that was coming off of the split decision draw against Murat coming into this fight. And what Campillo does, he basically wears down his opponents. You know, he uses short jab punches, a lot of straight right and lefts, and he basically just wears you down. He keeps coming forward. He's aggressive, always in your face, got that great chin. But overall, I went with Cloud for a reason as the most exciting fighter. I think he is the most exciting fighter in the division, and I think he's going to beat Campillo. One of the main reasons is because this fight is in the U.S. Campillo's traveling far. Campillo has no shot at winning a decision here against Cloud, and the fact that he only has the 8 knockouts out of his 21 victories shows you that he's probably not going to knock out Cloud. So all those things combined, and the fact that I think Cloud is really that much better than Campillo is, I see a unanimous decision victory here. I give Campillo a few rounds in this fight that he will win. But outside of that, it's going to be a Cloud celebration in this fight. He's going to look good, and he's going to pull off the victory.
Yeah, I'm not going to really disagree with much of what you just said. Cloud, to me, is one of the most poorly promoted guys in the sport. So thank you, Don King, for ruining a great career, in my opinion. The guy is all action all the time, okay? Always brings heat, made for TV. Yet we never see this guy. Now, he fought 2 times in 2008. He fought once in 2009, 2 times in 2010, and once in 2011. Okay, that's unacceptable to me. He's your favorite at light heavyweight. He's one of my favorites at light heavyweight. I love his approach. I love his demeanor. You know, he's just rough, rugged, mean type of fighter. Just a throwback guy, too. Can't wait to see him get in the ring again. I love watching Cloud fight. Campillo, as I said, this guy's no pushover. You know, he moves around the ring very well from that southpaw stance with good footwork, good hand speed. Not a whole lot of power, like you mentioned. And actually, it's kind of funny. He got stopped in 6 rounds by one of my favorite boxing names to say out loud, Vyacheslav Uzalkov. I just love saying that one. But he's had mixed results against the other sort of name guys that he's fought. And you kind of touched on a few of these. Lost a split decision, but also won a majority decision against Babet Shuvanov. The funny thing is, everybody kind of feels those should have been reversed. You know, when he lost a split decision, everybody says he should have won. When he won a majority, everybody says he should have lost, which is kind of interesting. Karl Murat, you mentioned that. You know, majority decision loss to Murat, and then a split draw. A lot of people felt he should have won the split draw, though. Eked out a majority decision win over Hugo Garay. Point being, he's taken on some good fighters. He's tough to beat decisively because you're hearing stuff, split decisions, majority decisions, split draws. You're hearing these types of things. And we know he can go rounds. Now, the problem is, I don't know if he's good enough on his toes to avoid Cloud for all 12 rounds and just stay away from that pressure. The only way he's going to do that is if he runs a lot. which would cost him the fight anyways on the cards. I don't think he's a guy that's going to run. So I think he's going to eventually be forced to trade every now and then. I think that's a huge advantage for Cloud. I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't think Cloud's going to be able to knock him out. I think Cloud's going to win a convincing unanimous decision, and I think he scores a knockdown in the process. So I'm going to say Cloud, unanimous decision, 116-111. I'm going with that score.
All right, so you're actually calling out the score there. I mean, I would probably agree with that, but I don't want to steal your thunder on calling the actual card there. But, Lee, we are in agreement again, both going with Cloud Paul to victory, Paul Williams as well as Vitaly Klitschko. So I think so far, right, we've agreed on every fight. We haven't went head-to-head on a single one this year. Is that correct?
Right, and we actually we haven't really talked about a whole lot of fights because last week there was no fights. The first week there was just the one fight. And then there was that 1 week where I think we did 4. And, of course, today we did 3. So really hasn't been a whole lot to talk about. But we did disagree a little bit on the toss-up. So on the one toss-up. So that was pretty much it. But I think that's pretty much it, Charlie. So unless you got anything else, I think we can close this out.
No, I say that's it. Remember, check us out next week. We will be back posted up either Wednesday night or by Thursday morning for the show.
All right, so remember, everybody, you can email us inthecorner@rocketmail.com. You can follow on Twitter @InTheCornerShow. You can like the show at facebook.com/InTheCornerBoxingRadio, and you can also pick up your show merchandise, cafepress.com, In the Corner Boxing Radio, cafepress.com/In the Corner Boxing Radio, I should say. So thank you to everybody who has been purchasing items. We appreciate that. Thank you for everybody who's been emailing and keeping up with us on Twitter and Facebook, and keep it coming. We love talking to the fans, and we hope you enjoyed this week's show. We hope you get a chance to check out all the fights this weekend. Like we said, Friday night fights on ESPN, there's a fight. Friday night Showbox, there's a fight. Saturday afternoon, epicshd.com, there's the Vitaly Chisora fight. And then, of course, Showtime at night with Paul Williams and Tavoris Cloud. So tons of boxing to watch on TV this weekend. So hope you enjoy it, and we hope you come back and tune in again next week.
Peace.
Peace.